that they could be. And he says now, still in his 90s, he can recite some of those sermons verbatim. They meant so much to him. When the word of the Lord comes to people, creative energy can take place if a person allows their heart and their mind to be open to it. God is at work now. God will be at work in preachers like myself over the internet during this time, because God lets nothing be wasted. Creative energy. Participate in it, and God will prepare you. You don't have to prepare yourself. That's called grace. It's what God does, not what we do, and it is creative energy. The second thing that God does during a time of preparation is remove a person from the past, so that the past no longer has its grip on you, so that you're freed. All your chains that are holding you down from the past are loosed, and you're set free so you can live into the future. Moltmann said that in all the guilt that he was experiencing, he had a very important experience when a group of young Dutch Christian students came to visit the prisoners in that camp. And Moltmann said he was fearful and terrified that he would have to face these Dutch young people, because he knew that he had participated in the invasion of their country, that he had fought in a military fashion over a bridge at Arnhem, a bitter battle. And he knew that he had participated in something, and he was worried about this encounter with what he considered perhaps to be enemies, only to discover that those Dutch students had extended grace, creative energy to them. The Dutch student says, we come no longer as enemies, but as brothers and sisters. And the only way we can cross from ourselves to you and you to us is on the bridge that is called Christ. The bridge that you fought over in Arnhem is no longer. There is now a new bridge that brings us together. They talked about how they had been tormented, harassed, and in some cases tortured by the Gestapo. They talked about how they had lost their Jewish friends during the time of German occupation of Holland. These Dutch students did. They talked about how they had in some cases lost their own homes and their livelihoods. But all that was now the past. They had come extending grace and expecting or hoping that the German POWs would return that grace, receive one another in an act of reconciliation, where there can be forgiveness and whole new life. And Moltmann said during that experience they embraced, and he began to feel as though he was being set free from the past. And so one of the things God does in this time of creative energy and preparing us for the future in the midst of this affliction is to release us from our past. Let it no longer have dominion over you. It was, but it is no more. And the future is not about the past. It's about what God is preparing us for. You can be set free. Receive that grace, that creative energy that takes you from your past and allows you to have a new future. And so the third thing and final thing is that he learned that he can begin to live into that future with trust, that God is preparing the way in that future. He went to school in order to become a pastor, and he was, and he preached the good news. He then went to get more schooling and became a theologian, writing books that are still read and are still impacting people in this day. He lived into the future, and he had a place in it. God is preparing us in a future where we will have a place. If we allow God to prepare us, if we set ourselves free from the past by receiving the creative energy of God, and then trusting as we live into the future where God is presently now, calling us into it with faith and hope and love, and you can be made new. Okay, so full circle now, concluding this whole sermon. I began by saying football executives are preparing their teams for the future in order that those teams might experience the glory of Super Bowl championship. Well, maybe during this time of present affliction, God is preparing each one of us, and maybe even us as a congregation, for a future in which we will fit into God's purposes. The past will be no longer. We can't go back to it, but we can live into the future. And God is preparing us for the glory that lies ahead. The creative energy of God. Receive it today and let God do God's good work in you. The world needs us. The past is no more. The future lies ahead. God is in it and is now preparing us for our purposes with God in that future. Do not be afraid. Allow God to work. God is among us. God is our rock and our fortress. In times of trouble, in our present affliction, the future will be God's. And where God is, there is glory. Amen.
And God is good.
Thank you, Andrew, for recording this.
No problem.
And we'll see each other, I guess, from time to time, and I'll see all of our friends eventually as well.